You're listening to the Chad Hasty Show on demand. Good for you. Now download the KFYO app and listen live weekday afternoons 5 to 7 p.m. Central.
Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Good evening, Lubbock, Amarillo, Wichita Falls, Abilene, Midland, Odessa, Dallas, Fort Worth, down in Houston, over in El Paso, and of course anywhere else inside or outside the great state of Texas, wherever you may be listening on this Thursday, February 1st. Welcome into the program. Glad that you're with us today. So much to talk about on the show. We've got McKenzie DiLullo with the Texan News, who will join us coming up at 5:35 this evening. We've got a lot of statewide news, a lot of national news to talk about. Get your phone calls, your thoughts in on all the big events of the day, all the big news stories that are out there. And, of course, you can weigh in on really anything that you'd like to. You can. We want to hear from you. We're a very interactive show. We like to hear from the audience, get your thoughts on anything going on. You can text in at any time at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. When you do text in, give us your name. Also, let us know where you're listening from. That way we can of course, give you a nice little shout out whenever you do text in. You can also give us a call at 1-800-687-0790. That's 1-800-687-0790, where you can sound off on any of the topics of the day. Anything that you would like to discuss, we're here for you. So you can sound off on anything. Today is also National Texas Day. Did you know that? Today is National Texas Day. So today we ask you your running topic, and you can weigh in on any of the topics. But your running topic today: what makes Texas great? What makes Texas great, and what do you love about Texas? Could be one and the same. But what do you love about Texas? What makes Texas so great? You can text in at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Get in on any of the topics of the day, especially those running topics. Want to hear from you on what you just absolutely love about the state of Texas. Again, 806-680-2790. Nikki Haley, we've got some news on her talking about whether or not Texas can secede or not. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the program. That always makes for an interesting topic. Always an interesting discussion that people like to have regarding that topic. We've also got just some other national news that we'll be getting into. One of the big stories this afternoon from CBS News: plans for U.S. strikes on Iranian personnel and facilities in Iraq and Syria approved after the Jordan drone attack. This is coming out from CBS. U.S. officials have confirmed to CBS News that plans have been approved for a series of strikes over a number of days against targets, including Iranian personnel and facilities inside Iraq and Syria. The strikes will come in response to the drone and rocket attacks targeting U.S. forces in the region, including the drone attack on Sunday that killed 3 U.S. service members. Speaking at the Pentagon Thursday, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin told reporters that the U.S. won't tolerate attacks on American troops. So it's a dangerous moment In the Middle East, Austin said, noting Israel's ongoing war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip and attacks by the Houthi rebels in Yemen on commercial shipping in the Red Sea also happening in the region as well. Quote, we'll continue to work to avoid a wider conflict in the region, but we will take all necessary actions to defend the United States, our interest, our people, and we'll respond when we choose, where we choose, and how we choose. Of course, it'll all be leaked out, and everyone will know what's going on, and they'll be able to move resources and everything else in advance of our strikes. Whether the major factor in the timing of the strikes, U.S. officials told CBS News the U.S. has the capability to carry out strikes in bad weather, but prefers to have better visibility of selected targets as a safeguard against inadvertently hitting civilians who may stray into the area at the last moment. Again, just tell everybody what your plans are. You might as well. Just dictate to everybody exactly what your war plans are. And if you have a lot of civilians in the area, then you're not going to attack. Just go ahead and let everybody know. It's going back to when Trump was president. One of the things that I loved, and again, he had leaks. He did. He had leaks in his administration. Almost every administration has leaks. But this, this dictating and telling everybody what is going on and what we're going to do and when we may do it, and if it's bad weather, if it's raining outside, don't worry, we're not going to attack you. And if you have a lot of people in the area, well, we're not going to attack you at that point either. Like to me, it's absolutely treasonous when you are leaking that type of info and letting the enemy know exactly what the battle plans are and what we won't do, what we will do. And it's horrible. That's why when I always appreciated it when Trump would tell the news media would ask him, Mr. President, are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And he would say, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to tell you. It goes back to when the news media made this big deal out of Trump. Trump wouldn't rule out bombing Europe. Remember that? When the news media went crazy that Trump would not rule out nuking Europe. He was asked the question, would you ever send a nuclear bomb into Europe? And he said, I'm not going to rule anything out. Why would I rule anything out or rule anything in or out right now? That's silliness. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to tell you what I am or am not going to do in a hypothetical situation. I'm not going to tell you anything. And of course, the news media you've got to tell us. We deserve to know. You don't deserve to know anything. The media, you don't, when it comes to military use, you don't deserve to know what the military is planning. Not when it involves troops, not when it involves lives. You don't deserve to know. You'll find out like everybody else. There's going to be plenty of pictures on TV. Somebody's going to be rolling film. It's going to happen. You'll know about it. You'll find out about it. You'll talk about it. You'll say, "Great, Joe Biden's a great leader." Of course, if we had real leadership in the United States, we wouldn't be at this point where we are right now. That's what nobody's really talking about. Too many people are worried about a pop star and whether or not she's going to make an endorsement or not. Instead, you've got New York City releasing illegal immigrants who are flipping off the camera one day after they beat the crap out of police officers. You've got a wide open border still. You've got the Biden administration not doing a damn thing to secure the border. You've got the administration, seriously about to launch more missile strikes throughout the Middle East while telling the American people we don't want to spread anything. We don't want to spread the war in the Middle East, but we're going to anyway. Listen, I understand defending our people. But again, this is why real leadership in the world matters. And having a strong leader in the White House, having a strong commander-in-chief, a person who the rest of the world would respect, And instead, you've got Joe Biden. And the world knows they can get away with just about anything. And, okay, well, Iran, you're not going to bomb Iran. You're going to bomb Iraq. You're going to bomb the proxies. You're not going to go after the Iranians. And, of course, the reason you're not going to do that is because that would go into a full war. And I'm not saying you invade. I'm not saying you go in and you do it. Just saying we need real leadership in the White House. And again, I think that the Iranians, the Chinese, I think that others who are foes throughout the world, if you had real leadership in the White House and you had a commander-in-chief who, maybe scared some of these countries, at least had the respect of some of these countries, you wouldn't be seeing the world in the position that it's in right now. 1-800-687-0790. That's 1-800-687-0790. Today, National Texas Day. And I had the response earlier. Why is it not on Texas Independence Day? Well, look, I don't make up these days. Someone else made up the days, and they wanted they wanted National Texas Day to be on this day. Which, listen, we can celebrate the state many, many times. We don't just have to celebrate the state once or twice a year. We can celebrate many times. But today we ask you, what makes Texas so great? What do you love about the state of Texas? You can text in 806-680-2790. When we come back, your text messages, your phone calls, and much more.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Friday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, looking at the possible Biden strikes in the Middle East. We'll discuss what could happen here, what the aftermath will be, plus Clay.
Do we believe the polls coming out, really telling contradictory stories? On the one hand, Trump looks like he's in incredible shape. On the other one, maybe Biden's not doing so bad. Into February, we'll break it all down for you. Friday edition, hang.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
Reynolds, join me and Kevin McCarthy for the Car Pro Show Saturday mornings at 11 on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO.
Back on the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you tuning in today. Let's see. Michael from Amarillo weighing in. What I love about Texas, it's a red state, and it's where I met my wife. Very nice. Thank you for tuning in from Amarillo. Let's see. Rob C., waiting to hear Clueless Joe call in and share what makes Texas so great. Lawsuits and open borders, maybe. Joe loves the open borders in Texas. Now, of course, he doesn't like the open borders and the illegal immigrants being bussed into Washington, D.C. He doesn't like that. But as long as they're staying in Texas, he's pretty happy about that. Jason and Snyder, the food and a varying geography. Let's see, another texture. Are we sure the defense secretary is not in the hospital right now? It's a great question. There's really no way to be able to know what the defense secretary is up to. He's apologizing. That's the last thing I saw. He apologized and said that he handled it all wrong. That he should have let the boss know. And the American people know that he was going to be in the hospital for a while during, I don't know, international conflicts. that maybe he should let the commander. Again, this is why the world doesn't take us seriously. This is why the Iranians don't take us seriously. This is why Hamas does not take us seriously. This is why the Chinese do not take us seriously. You have a defense secretary who's just goes MIA for a while. Just gone. See you later. Doesn't tell anybody. And the White House says nothing. The White House has no idea. They've got no clue. They don't know he was in the hospital. They had no idea. And, the next thing you know, you have Joe stumbling and mumbling around places, and you don't know what the hell he's saying half the time. It's just embarrassing. It's dangerous for that. The biggest national security risk right now is Joe Biden. Another text, Rob and Abilene have always felt welcome and safe here in Texas. I've lived here since 1984 when I was moved by the military. John in Lubbock, what are your thoughts on the Texan movement? How do you feel about the GOP spurting the movement and refusing to put the question of secession on the ballot? We've talked about this a couple of times. Again, from what I read, they did not have the number of the right type of signatures that were needed for the ballot initiative. I'm not a fan of what Matt Rinaldi said about, not the Texan folks not being the right type of voter. I think that was in a long line of things that Matt Rinaldi has said that is not very bright. But listen, I think the Texan movement overall, I think there needs to be better leadership, to be quite frank with you. If you're going to get any type of momentum at all, it just seems like you've got a lot of serious people who are behind it and on the kind of the quote unquote grassroots behind it. People who like the idea of it, people who want the idea of it. I just don't see any real leadership behind it. And when you're trying to get lawmakers behind it, I really don't see any real leadership there either. So I don't think the Texan movement has a very good shot at least getting through the legislature anytime soon. But again, this is just me being honest with you. I think the lack of seriousness, the lack of leadership at times, and the fact that you don't have any real, to me, serious lawmakers in the legislature behind it shows that it's not really going to go anywhere anytime soon. And that's just from what I've seen about it. Now, I know some good people who are part of it and consider themselves pro-Texan, and that's fine. I think that there are more people who are part of the ground level of it who are more serious than those who are in the leadership of it. So just a couple of thoughts there. 806-680-2790. You can send in your thoughts on the text line. You can get in at 1-800-687-0790. Wall Street Journal headline, Shadow War, with Iran risks turning into a direct conflict. For decades, the U.S. and Iran have waged a shadow war across the Middle East following a rule understood by both sides. If you hit us, we'll hit back at least as hard. But the administration prepares to retaliate for a drone strike by the Iranian-backed militias that killed 3 American soldiers last weekend. The calculations of the two long-standing adversaries has changed. Neither Washington or Tehran appears eager for a direct military confrontation. Sunday's drone strike against a outpost in Jordan near its borders with Iraq and Syria was the first attack by the Iranian-backed proxies since October to cause U.S. fatalities. Sparked calls in Congress for the White House to respond with military action targeting Tehran. For the administration, hitting Iran's paramilitary forces risk a counterstrike against U.S. troops in the Middle East and in bases that were Tehran's formidable arsenal of advanced missiles and drones, expanding the war in Gaza between Israel and Hamas into a wider regional conflict the White House is seeking to avoid in a presidential election year. Again, if you had some real leadership, you could, and I think the U.S. does need to do something. Don't get me wrong. I think you have to defend your troops. I think you have to defend your people. You've got to do that. That doesn't mean an invasion, but you have to do something to respond when your troops are injured and killed. But you also have to have a leader who will get across to the Iranians, you guys have got to stop this. The money's going to stop flowing. We're going to cut off everything that we can. And we're going to isolate you guys even more so than you are right now. And you don't have a leader who can do that. You don't have a leader who is threatening towards the Iranians. Instead, you got somebody who sends them billions of dollars. When we come back, McKenzie DiLullo with the Texan News will join us on the Chad Hasty Show.
The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790.
Diane from Michigan, a disabled senior citizen trying to get by. Henry from Florida, a veteran fighting to make ends meet. Elena from Arizona, a mother struggling to feed her daughter. Hi, I'm Connie Britton, and I support Feeding America because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year, like Diane, Henry, and Elena. Learn more at feedingamerica.org. Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
A tornado is on the ground. You're at work, your spouse is at a meeting, the kids are at 3 different schools. Power and cell are out, and your home is inaccessible. Now what? Have a preset meetup plan. Share it with everyone in your family and practice it. Know the emergency plans at work and school, too. Get ahead of what's ahead. Be informed, make a plan, build a kit. #TexasReady. Go to txready.org for more information.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. You're listening to The Chad Hasty Show.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you tuning in today. A lot to get into. I'll get to your text messages here in the next segment. Joining us on the phones right now, we always like to visit with our friends over at the Texan News. McKenzie DiLullo with the Texan News joining us here on the Chad Hasty Show. Welcome back, McKenzie. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Chad. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We've got quite a few stories over at the Texan. We'll start off with Senator Cruz collaborating on a new anti-social media bill.
Yes, with an unlikely partner in this. It's an unlikely duo in the U.S. Senate. Now, this is a bill to, according to the press release, limit children's access to social media at school. Senator Ted Cruz and Senator John Fetterman, yes, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, have teamed up to support this bill. It's called the Eyes on the Board Act. It would create requirements for schools benefiting from federal broadband funding. It's called the E-rate program to implement access blocking on the subsidized services, devices, networks, etc. This is a program overseen by the FCC, and it creates or attempts to create affordable telecommunications and information services to schools. And so the aim of this legislation is to limit distractions from social media in the classroom and prohibit schools from receiving that funding, the E-rate funding, unless they prohibit access to social media on those subsidized devices. So it would also require the adoption of a screen time policy, which is very interesting for those students in the schools. So a statement from Cruz: addictive and distracting social media apps are wreaking havoc on our kids. The very least we can do is restrict access to social media at school so the taxpayer subsidies aren't complicit in harming students. Like I said, a very unlikely duo. Fascinating to see if this bill receives traction and moves forward in the U.S. Senate, but certainly not a press release we expected to see in our inboxes and statements from these senators.
Yeah. Well, and this is something that a lot of Republicans and Democrats have been talking about as, I guess, more and more science is coming out about some of the harm towards social media and young teenagers, and the fact that I think a lot of teachers and a lot of schools have said kids are distracted. Kids are very distracted in school if they have access to social media.
Absolutely. And we've seen the Texas legislature take a different approach. They passed a bill this session specifically aiming at more explicit content and limiting access students have on campus to explicit content on devices. So that's a different angle, but similar in a lot of ways to limiting just children's access across the board to social media, which is where Cruz and Fetterman come into the debate here. And it is certainly more of a bipartisan effort here on this one.
Yeah. Well, it seems like every week we have an update on Attorney General Ken Paxton and some of the legal issues chasing him. We have another update this week now.
Yes, so this latest movement in this whistleblower case denied the Office of the Attorney General motion to concede the case and enter judgment for the plaintiffs, the whistleblowers. This is very much, similar messaging we've heard from the Attorney General's office before, as they characterize the lawsuit as a costly distraction. They filed a motion. I'll kind of walk through the points here. There's a lot going on with this, but the office filed a motion, very unusual, with the Travis County District Court, asking the judge to, like I said, enter judgment favoring the whistleblowers, those coming at the Attorney General, and promising not to contest any of the allegations or to appeal the decision. Basically, wrap it up with a bow, let's get it over with. And basically sought to prevent the Attorney General and several of his senior employees from undergoing deposition in the case, which would be the first time throughout the last 3 years that the Attorney General has been under scrutiny for this scandal, where he would be actually under oath giving testimony. Even during the impeachment trial, where he would have not been under oath, he was still not compelled to testify. So this is something very much in the news. Would be a huge move if the Attorney General was placed under deposition. And despite that motion, depositions were then ordered to proceed as scheduled. The Attorney General was set to be deposed today. Now, the office appealed to the Supreme Court and asked for those depositions to be paused while the court considered that larger question of whether or not to enter judgment. And just before, very notably, the Attorney General's office announced its intent to file that emergency appeal. Numerous national political figures connected with Trump, former President Donald Trump, who has very vocally been a close political ally of Paxton, accused the justices of the Texas Supreme Court on social media of being biased in the case. Trump himself even asked the court to end the case in favor of Paxton. Hours after these comments from Trump, justices issued a temporary stay blocking the depositions from occurring. And then on Wednesday, another judge issued an order denying Paxton's motion to enter a judgment, and now basically setting the stage for the case to head to trial, of course, pending a final decision by the Supreme Court. So lots of jargon there, but essentially the Attorney General is not set to be deposed for now. Trial is pending. We'll see what the Supreme Court decides. And again, the fate of the case continues to remain in the hands of the Supreme Court of Texas.
All right. And then focusing on the city of Dallas, looking at some bond propositions.
Yes. So yesterday, the Dallas City Council kind of figured out some more specific direction to the staff of the city regarding the bond election planned for May 4th. There were no official votes, but the $1.25 billion bond propositions must be set by the City Council no later than Valentine's Day, February 14th. Council member Kara Mendelson offered the bond allocations, and they were supported by a majority of the City Council as guidance to city staff. To kind of break this down a little bit, the proposal will be $500 million allocated to streets and transportation, $310 million to Parks and Recreation, and $90 million to public safety. These were among the top priorities of Dallas residents when surveyed about the propositions last year. It would also include a $75 million discretionary funding to be divided among the 14 city council districts and the mayor. We expect on February 7th that the council will discuss and finalize these projects within each bond proposition. So we'll see what happens there. And then a week later on the 14th, we'll determine whether or not to move forward with the May bond election. It is expected to move forward. The last bond program passed in Dallas was for basically just $1 billion in 2017, the largest portion of which was also designated for streets. So big city, big bond. We'll know more in a couple of weeks.
All right. What else can people find over at the Texan.news?
I want to give a shout out to our border coverage. We've seen so much going on at the border in the news the last few weeks. We have several reporters on that beat, Cameron Abrams and Matt Stringer, who have been reporting, just killing it with their reporting on the border. Definitely worth going and checking out at the Texan.news. From Abbott to what's actually happening in Eagle Pass, firsthand accounts. Our team has been all over it. So definitely go check that out at the Texan.news.
All right. Very good. McKenzie, as always, appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you. That's McKenzie DiLullo with the Texan News. We'll be right back on the Chad Hasty Show.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Friday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, looking at the possible Biden strikes in the Middle East. We'll discuss what could happen here, what the aftermath will be, plus Clay.
Do we believe the polls coming out, really telling contradictory stories? On the one hand, Trump looks like he's in incredible shape. On the other one, maybe Biden's not doing so bad. Into February, we'll break it all down for you. Friday edition, hang.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Tomorrow morning at 11.
I answered the call. Together, we fought for our nation and its people. And even though I no longer wear the uniform, I am still a Marine. My service has come full circle. I will continue to support my country and my community. Then and now, Semper Fidelis remains my promise. Always faithful, always Marine.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Today, National Texas Day. What do you love about Texas? What makes Texas great? You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. Again, 806-680-2790. And you can weigh in on that. Also, I want to thank again McKenzie DiLullo for joining us and, of course, sounding off on letting us know about all the different top news stories throughout the great state of Texas. Lots of stuff going on out there that we've been talking about. Nikki Haley making some news. Let's see this from Fox. Nikki Haley explains comments on whether Texas can secede from the United States. The late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia said there is no right to secede. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley says the viral comments that she made this week about Texas secession were more directed at President Biden and the illegal immigration crisis than whether Texans could actually try and leave the Union. Well, it's not about secession. Nobody's going to do that. That's not what people are talking about. What they're talking about, why is the president there keeping Texans safe? A former South Carolina governor and former UN ambassador said Thursday in a Fox News interview. A day earlier, Haley appeared to stumble over a question. She didn't appear to stumble. She stumbled over a question about whether the state of Texas has a right to secede from the U.S. She claimed it was their decision to make. During an interview on the Breakfast Club podcast, Charlemagne the God asked the 2024 presidential hopeful if she would use force against Texas if they tried to secede from the Union over the border issue. She said, no, we're not going to use force against Texas if they were to try and secede. And Charlemagne referenced the 2010 interview with Haley saying the U.S. Constitution allows for states to secede. Quote, I believe in states' rights. I believe that everything should be as close to the people to decide, Haley said, adding that she supported Governor Abbott's razor wire fencing measure to protect the state amid the growing border crisis. When pressed about the issue of secession, Haley said that if Texas decides they want to do that, they can do that. If the whole state says we don't want to be a part of America anymore, I mean, that's their decision to make. But she did stumble over it. She said, I don't think government needs to tell people how to live, how to do anything. I mean, we need to let freedom live. I think, states are going to make decisions, but let's talk about reality. Texas isn't going to secede. I mean, that's not something they're going to do, Haley said. On Thursday, Haley was interviewed by Fox News at a Seattle campaign event. Asked about her comments, she said that he was talking about something from years ago. They're not going to do it. It's not even the issue. What should be the issue with Texas is, quote, look, they're dealing with terrible illegal immigration crisis. The federal government, Joe Biden, not being there for them. We should let them do whatever they need to do to keep Texans safe and keep Texas protected. I guess she wasn't asked, again, her thoughts on just overall Texas secession. But she's kind of backtracking on what she said in the podcast. I don't think she fully understood the question in the podcast. I really don't. I don't think she was just looking at. I listened to it. I don't think she knew what the hell she was talking about. I don't think she got it. I don't think she understood. I think she was really focused on the immigration issue, and that was about it. And then I think the secession issue, which nobody nationally is talking about. I know you've got some people in Texas talking about it, but no one nationally is talking about it. That's why I don't think it was on her radar. Because, it's not like you have the governor of Texas going out there and saying, all right, if you don't secure the border, we're going to leave. We're out of here. See you later. You don't have the governor doing that. You don't have the lieutenant governor doing that. You don't have anybody in the state government saying, okay, we're gonna leave. We're out of here. So it's and I think Nikki Haley was probably a little bit confused. I don't see Nikki Haley. Let's just say she was president and Texas wanted to leave. I don't see Nikki Haley going, all right, see y'all later. Do you? Do you really see Nikki Haley just going, okay, see you, Texas, see you later? I don't see Nikki Haley okay that. Now, it's good to hear that she wouldn't bomb the state of Texas, which is something Joe Biden can't promise. In fact, Joe has said he would use force against the American people. He has said that. He has said that numerous times when it comes to the Second Amendment. Remember that? When Joe's out there saying, okay, well, you think you have a right to own an AR-15 and you're going to overthrow the government? We've got tanks, we've got bombs, we've got missiles. Which he makes a very good reason why we should have those as well. We should be able to have a jet, if you want a jet, if you can fly the jet. You should be able to have a tank. I don't think it wouldn't be cheap. I mean, it wouldn't be like a Glock or anything. I mean, you'd have to have some money in order to be able to afford these things. But Joe Biden does make a very good argument as to why we should be able to have these things and more. But he says that a tyrannical U.S. government would just bomb its own citizens. And that's basically what he said. Well, he said, we've got the tanks, we've got the bombs, we've got the missiles, we've got the jets. So it's good to hear that Nikki Haley wouldn't bomb us. That I think is one of the top takeaways from the Nikki Haley interview with Charlemagne the God, is that Nikki Haley would not bomb Texas if Texas were to try and secede. Although I don't even trust her on that. 1-800-687-0790. You can send in your thoughts. You can text in as well at 806-680-2790. You can weigh in on any of the topics that we've been getting into today. How about this story out of the Dallas Morning News? Owners of Boone Pickens' huge Panhandle Ranch in dust-up over the name. Two buyers who bought parts of the Dallas tycoon Pickens' Panhandle Ranch are fighting over the rights of the name. The almost 64,000-acre Mesa Vista Ranch in Roberts County, northeast of Amarillo, was sold back in 2022 to two investors. The property, which Pickens began assembling in 1971, was listed for sale at $170 million. Now they're fighting over the name. I'd just be happy to have some of the property. Forget about the name. I'll just be happy with the property. All right, when we come back, your phone calls, your text, and more.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media. Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Final hour of the program. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. Asking you today, what do you love about Texas? What makes Texas so great? You can text in at 806-680-2790. Let us know because today is National Texas Day, so you can weigh in and let us know what you love about the Lone Star State. 806-680-2790. That is the text line. That's how you can get in touch with us and let us know your thoughts. We've got much more to get into in this hour of the program. That includes, by the way, the story out of New York, and you may have seen this photo that's been going around of the illegal immigrant flipping off the cameras. Story from Fox News. Illegal migrant flips middle fingers after being charged with attacking NYPD in Times Square. A violent illegal immigrant who was arrested for taking part of a mob attack on two NYPD officers flipped the bird at awaiting reporters after he was released from custody on Wednesday. John Boda, 22, made the offensive double-handed signal after he was released from police custody on charges of assaulting a police officer and gang assault for the shocking beatdown in Times Square on Saturday near a migrant shelter. Boda did not appear bothered by the serious charges as he flipped his two middle fingers and smirked at reporters and photographers outside the Midtown South Precinct in Manhattan. He and several other illegal immigrants attacked NYPD officers, and a lieutenant just steps from the New Amsterdam Theater, a popular destination among tourists. The caught-on-camera attack has sparked widespread condemnation. 7 illegal immigrants have now been charged in relation to the attack. I'm sure once they're all released, they'll be going back for their court hearings. All charged earlier this week with a variety of charges, including assault on a police officer, gang assault, obstructing government administration, and disorderly conduct. The NYPD told Fox on Thursday that 2 other migrants had also been arrested, bringing the total number up to 7. Henry Brito, 24, and Jandri Barros, 21, were arrested, both charged with robbery and felony assault. The robbery charges pertain to an officer's cell phone being stolen during the attack. The phone has not been recovered. In the video, the NYPD asked the migrants to move, but a scuffle ensued as the officers were seen trying to subdue a person in a yellow jacket on the ground. One hooded suspect wearing a backpack can be seen kicking one of the officers twice in the head as he grapples on the ground, while another suspect in a red top kicks him in the back. A struggle ensues. The suspect in a red jacket returns and kicks the other officer in the back. Another hooded suspect wearing a backpack then arrives on scene and takes a big swinging kick aimed at one of the officers' heads. The migrant falls to the ground as he attempts to execute the kick. Suspects then seen running off. The unidentified officers sustained minor injuries, were treated at the scene. One officer sustained cuts to the face, while the other had bruising to the body. Now again, you have a mob of illegal immigrants attacking NYPD, and nothing happens. They're arrested and they're released. Why? Why are they released? Why not held until court hearings? Why not held and then deported? Why are they released? They're obviously violent. They're obviously violent people. They're not here to make this country great. They're not here in search of a better life. They're thugs, and they don't need to be here. And what does New York City do? Well, we're going to catch them. We're going to release them. And they promised they'd be back for a court date. I guarantee you that these people said they'd be back for a court hearing. And in New York, they'll never see them again. They're gone. They'll move on to some different city, beat the crap out of officers there, or go and find somebody who just lives inside a home that they want to invade. And they'll kill somebody. If I had to put money on it, one of these guys is going to kill somebody in the United States. And they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here. They never should have been released, but that's what we do. You're an illegal immigrant. You can come in. You can beat the crap out of officers in New York, and you're in jail maybe a day before being released. You're a grandmother who shows up at the Capitol on January 6th. You're labeled a terrorist, and you're kept in jail for months. It's just unbelievable. And this is why, again, it's not going to just be a presidential election that turns things around. We have a long, long, long ways to go. People in New York City should be furious about this. This should be one of the top headlines across the nation. Conservatives should be talking about this. Conservatives should be pointing this out instead of talking about a pop star who's dating a football player. But no, instead they'd rather talk about a pop star because that's what's going to earn them a little bit of extra money. This is the crap that matters. Because I guarantee you, it's not just these thugs. There's more. There's more that's come across the border. We know that. We know there are violent people who have come across the border. And by the way, you look at the photos, all these are young men who have come across and they don't look like they're starving to death. You know, the poor migrants that are coming across the border, so weak. They're just yearning for a better life. You're looking for a place to be, they're trying to escape violent nations and violent people. Really? Are they? Because at least 7 were attacking police officers in a very violent manner. They could have killed these cops. They were kicking these police officers in the head. I don't know why NYPD didn't shoot them. Well, no, I do. I understand why. You can't do that. That's racist. But they should have been shot. And they should be deported. They should no longer be in this country. And what does New York do? They just release them. The ages of those charged with attacking the NYPD officers, 19, 21, 24, 19, and 24. Or 19, 21, 24, and 19, excuse me. Young men, angry young men, not stealing because they want to make a better life, not stealing because they want to improve their lives or their families' lives, attacking police officers because they're thugs. And I can almost guarantee it. Almost guarantee it. One of these guys will kill somebody in the United States. They will ruin some family. They will ruin. They will ruin a happy family's life. At least one of them, maybe more, but at least one of them will turn out to be a murderer and take somebody's life, probably pretty soon in the United States. If I had to bet money on it, because if you're an illegal immigrant and you're attacking police officers, kicking them in the head, there's nothing else you won't do. Now, you can't convince me these type of people aren't going to be all up for a home invasion somewhere. And you can't convince me that they're going to show up in court and await their trial in New York. They're gone. Let's see. One texter, Chad, report on Fox said the sources reported that 4 of those thugs had already hopped a bus to California using fake names. That from Jerry in Lubbock. Probably so. Probably. Absolutely. Rick in Lubbock, those New York City lefty cities don't even call them illegal immigrants. They say they are being overrun by asylum seekers. Well, because that's the language that's being used. They're asylum seekers. I mean, listen, Obama and Biden have made that so that if you cross into the United States, you're seeking asylum. That's just what it is now. You even look at the story from Fox News. This is filed under the illegal immigrants tab. And the headline is illegal migrant. And then you read the story, a violent illegal immigrant. So Fox is all over the place on this. You have the writer who calls them illegal immigrant. You have the editor who will say, well, I better go with illegal migrant. At least they didn't call them asylum seekers. But, that's what the administration considers them. Robin Abilene, listening to Nikki Haley is like listening to a high school debate club. Not very well versed. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-3776. 2790. This is the type of story that should be everywhere on social media, and everyone should be talking about this, because this is the type of story that matters. But instead, hey, let's focus on a pop singer and talk about that. That's easier to talk about. No. This is the stuff that needs to be highlighted. This is the stuff we need to get out in front of people's faces, because this is the real threat in the United States. This is what will drive people to the polls. Or at least it should. It should scare the hell out of everybody what's going on. 806-680-2790. Just a reminder for those of you in Lubbock, Saturday 2 to 4 p.m. I'll be at the Wing Shack at 54th and Slide Road, getting you ready for the Hotter Than Hell Wing Challenge. Also just enjoying some wings. Come out and see me.
Said a woman that hurt his pride, told him that she loved him so, and turn around and let him go. Then he said, you better watch yourself, or you're gonna get hurt yourself.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Friday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, looking at the possible Biden strikes in the Middle East. We'll discuss what could happen here, what the aftermath will be, plus Clay.
Do we believe the polls coming out, really telling contradictory stories? On the one hand, Trump looks like he's in incredible shape. On the other one, maybe Biden's not doing so bad. Into February, we'll break it all down for you. Friday edition, hang.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Tomorrow morning at 11.
Weeknights at 7 on News Talk KFYO and the KFYO app.
I was lying on the grass a Sunday morning of last week, indulging in myself defeat.
All right, welcome back to the Chad HD Show. Yeah, I've seen this story a couple of times. I had a listener send this to me. Gavin Newsom, he was apparently on a Zoom call. He was on a healthcare panel. And he was talking to, I guess, some other Democrats there on the panel. And he said that he went to a nearby Target store. Where he spent $380 on whatever was at Target. And he said this, Newsom was purchasing $380 worth of merchandise when the clerk noticed a thief with his arms full of stolen merchandise had dropped an item. Newsom said the clerk told the thief, "Sir, you dropped this." The thief rushed back to get the stolen item. Newsom claims to have been surprised by the scene. Quote, as we're checking out, the woman says, "Oh, he just is walking out. He's not paying for them." Newsom said, "Why aren't you stopping him?" And she says, because of the governor. She doesn't know that she is talking to the governor of California. She said, swear to God, true story. The clerk then supposedly tells Gavin Newsom the governor lowered the threshold. There's no accountability. Newsom said, well, that's not true. And then he explained to the clerk that a thief can get ready for this, okay? A thief in California can steal $950 worth of merchandise without committing a felony. And that is the 10th toughest law in America. Yeah, right up here from PJ Media. He repeated the claim to her again because he thinks saying it twice will make his point land better. Quote, she didn't even know what I was talking about, he exclaimed. $950. Now, PJ Media goes on, maybe he doesn't know the cost of retail theft to every individual in America is $500 a year. Maybe he doesn't know the clerk stops someone, he or she could get fired, get sued if the perp gets hurt because criminals get more support from DAs than victims do. And then said the clerk blamed the governor again for why they could do nothing about the massive retail theft. Newsom obviously has done nothing to change the laws in a supermajority to stop the madness. He then says he told her, why am I spending $380 when everyone can walk the hell out of here? Well, that's pretty much what people are doing, Gavin. That's why you have a lot of shops that are closing in California because of retail theft. $950 before it's a felony. Think of how much stuff you could steal from a CVS or a Target or whatever store before you get on up to $950. And then even if you do hit $950 and let's say it's a felony, well, in California, they'll probably let you out pretty quick. They'll probably, if you could say that you really needed those items, they'll probably just say, well, okay. And they'll let you go. But again, this is why you have so many businesses and so many places closing up shop in not only in California, but in other large cities across the United States. Again, this is how misplaced our priorities are in the United States. I mean, it should be nowhere near $950. They should be cracking down in California, absolutely cracking down in California. But instead, go ahead, still almost $1,000 worth of stuff. It'll be okay. And again, no one's going to go after them. No one's going to chase them out of a place of business because the article's right. They could shoot you because you're not allowed to have a gun in California, but the criminals can have guns in California, so they could shoot you or stab you in California, or if you injure them somehow, they'll sue you. And the scary thing is, a lot of Democrats want Gavin Newsom to be president. Your phone calls and text messages when we come back on the Chad Hasty Show.
Call in to the Chad Hasty Show at 1-800-687-0790. The Chad Hasty Show, broadcasting on the Texas Town Square Media Network. Today's markets from the Texas Department of Ag.
Well, howdy, neighbors. Texas feeder cattle auction importing prices 10 to $25 higher. Cattle futures also up. February live cattle futures up $2.40, closed at $177.35. March feeder cattle futures up $4.72, closed at $244.87. March cotton futures up a point, closed at $86.49. March wheat futures down a penny, closed at $6.21 a bushel. March corn also down a penny, closed at $4.47. And March soybean futures down 19 cents, closed at $12.03 a bushel. March soybean meal futures down $6.60, closed at $361.70 per ton. February class 3 milk futures up 22 cents, closed at $16.32 a hundred. March crude oil futures down $2.03, closed at $73.82 per barrel, and the Dow Jones up 369 points, closed at 38,519. And that's Market Roundup from the Texas Department of Agriculture. I'm your commissioner, Sid Miller. And remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters. Sold.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. You're listening to The Chad Hasty Show.
All right, welcome back to The Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you being out there today. You can send in your thoughts on the text line 806-680-2790. Story out of Breitbart. Majority of House Democrats voted against legislation this week that imposed new criminal penalties for illegal aliens leading Border Patrol agents on often deadly high-speed chases. On Tuesday, just 56 House Democrats joined with 215 House Republicans to pass the Agent Raul Gonzalez Officer Safety Act, which would establish new criminal penalties for illegal aliens and others driving vehicles who try to evade Border Patrol agents within 100 miles of the United States-Mexico border. Quote, we appreciate House Republican efforts to secure our lawless and chaotic border, protect the men and women on the front lines, make our communities safer, said Hector Garza, Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council, in a statement. The legislation also established a new criminal penalty, including a mandatory minimum prison sentence for those who cause death or serious injury to a Border Patrol agent in a high-speed chase near the border. Illegal aliens convicted of the crime, the legislation dictates, will be ineligible to claim asylum and deported from the United States. In total, 154 Democrats voted against the legislation that included the party's leadership. The legislation was named after a Border Patrol agent, Raul Humberto Gonzalez, a father of two, who was killed in December of 2022 when being led on a high-speed chase by a group of illegal aliens crossing the border. And this is something we've seen a lot in Texas, are these high-speed chases. It's very dangerous, not only for the officer, but it's very dangerous for the community as well. Because again, these people, they don't care. They don't want to get caught. They don't want to get sent back. They don't want to be caught by Border Patrol. So they don't care. They're driving recklessly. They're driving, very fast, leading officers on high-speed chases. They don't care if they slam into somebody. What's the big deal? And again, you have 154 Democrats who said, no, we don't need stiffer laws. We don't need more penalties. Now, if this would have been about gun control, the Democrats would have been all about it. We need more gun laws. We absolutely need more gun laws. But when it comes to stiffening penalties across the border, no, can't do it. Can't do it. Can't stiffen penalties against those who are here illegally and, again, breaking another law by leading officers on a high-speed chase. I mean, this really does tell you everything you need to know about the Democrat Party. (806-680-2790). Another story that's out of the Hill today. Tensions with Arab American voters loom over Biden visit to Michigan. President Biden sought to lean into his strengths during a Thursday trip to Michigan, even though the discontent among the state's large Arab American population over his handling of the situation in Gaza loomed over the visit. Biden met with black community leaders, chatted with patrons, at, they say, a black-owned restaurant, spoke at a United Auto Workers Hall on the heels of the organization's endorsement of his re-election bid during his visit to the Detroit area. Biden won by 14 percentage points among union members in the 2020 election, while he also won 87% of black voters. Both groups will be critical to his success in November. The tensions Biden is facing with Arab American voters in Michigan lurch just outside of his visit. Biden's itinerary did not take him into Dearborn, where Arab Americans make up a majority of the population, nor did it include any meetings with Arab American leaders like Rashida Tlaib, one of the most outspoken critics of the war in Gaza, who, well, she's quite something. Community leaders gathered Wednesday in nearby Dearborn to protest Biden's visit, to demonstrate to those nearby in Union Hall, waving Palestinian flags and carrying signs that read "Abandon Biden." Abandon Biden. 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 Abandon Biden Well, of course, Biden's not going to go anywhere where he thinks it's going to be a bad photo op or his people think it's going to be a bad photo op. They're not going to do that. But I think Biden's also going to suffer from some of these United Auto workers. I think he's going to suffer with the push to have the electric car, and some of these folks who are losing their jobs all throughout the auto industry. I think that's going to have an impact on Biden. And that's if they allow him to get the nomination. Still think there's a little something up there. Still think there's a little chance that they try to ditch Biden before this whole thing really gets going. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. On the app chat, Chad, do you think the Republicans will actually impeach Mayorkas? No, I don't. I don't think they will. I think I think it's going to be a lot of talk. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to have the votes to do it. I don't think the Republicans have the spine to do it. I mean, you had one very outspoken Republican. Who was it? Ken Buck out of Colorado. Yeah, Ken Buck out of Colorado, who has been a solid no. He's been one of the big Republicans saying that he's not going to do it. He's not going to vote to impeach Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary. He said that, let me bring this up here. Said it just isn't an impeachable offense. So I guess ignoring the border completely, not an impeachable offense to a Republican, Ken Buck out of Colorado. So turnaround for Buck, who earlier in Mayorkas' tenure implied that he had committed treason over his handling of the border, comparing him to Benedict Arnold. But he said he and his colleagues have not made a sufficient case to impeach Mayorkas, falling short of showing high crimes or misdemeanors. Going to talk to constitutional experts on the outside. I've talked to former members about the impact this would have in the future. The people I'm talking to agree this isn't an impeachable offense. So what is? If your job includes, which again, if you're a U.S. official, you're in the government, theoretically, and you're the Homeland Security Secretary, theoretically, your job is to protect the homeland, to defend the U.S. Constitution, to protect the United States borders. And if you not even attempt to secure the border, how is that not impeachable? How is that not something that you can actually take to voters, even if you're worried that voters will think that you're crazy? How do you not just have a town hall and go, look, guys, we've got to have a secured border. It's his job. He's not doing his job. Therefore, he needs to be impeached. You can absolutely make the case that it's an impeachable offense not to secure the border. They're not even trying to secure it. It would be one deal if they said, you know what, we're going to put back everything Trump had done. We're going to try a few other things as well in order to secure the border. And if people were just still coming across and pouring across the border, well, okay, listen, it's not the administration's fault. They're trying to do something, but they're just failing at the job right now. That's completely different. They're not even trying. And instead of not even trying, they're actively preventing Texas from actually trying to enforce the border. It's just unbelievable. And for a Republican to stand up and say it's not impeachable and that he's a solid no, again, it tells you that Republican, we can never just get on the same page. We can't do it. I guarantee you, if the Democrats wanted to impeach him, the Democrats wanted to impeach Homeland Security Secretary, they'd do it in a heartbeat. They'd find a way. They'd get everybody together and they'd do it. 806-680-2790. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. 888-275-2790. When we come back, your phone calls, your texts, we'll begin to wrap things up.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Friday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, looking at the possible Biden strikes in the Middle East. We'll discuss what could happen here, what the aftermath will be, plus Clay.
Do we believe the polls coming out, really telling contradictory stories? On the one hand, Trump looks like he's in incredible shape. On the other one, maybe Biden's not doing so bad. Into February, we'll break it all down for you. Friday edition, hang.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Tomorrow morning at 11.
Speeding tickets aren't cheap, and they can make your insurance rates go up too. So if you don't remember anything else from this commercial, remember this. Slow down or pay up. Also, if law enforcement pulls you over for speeding, they'll check your license and registration. So be ready for that. Basically, if you ever wonder if speeding is worth it, the answer is pretty obvious. No way. Speeding is dangerous and expensive. So slow down or pay up. Be safe, drive smart. A message from Texan.
Chad Hasty Show as we begin to wrap things up. How about this? The Las Vegas Raiders expected to hire former Cardinals head coach, former Texas Tech head coach Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator. That being reported out earlier this evening. 806-680-2790. You can weigh in on any of the topics that we've gotten into today. Still have a little bit of time left to get in on what you love about Texas, your favorite things about the state, and what makes Texas great on National Texas Day. And you can also weigh in on any of the other stories. Let's see. Texter Rick in Lubbock weighing in. The story you told about the shoplifter just tells me that Gavin Newsom is completely out of touch with what's happening in middle-class California. Oh, absolutely he is. Absolutely he is. Let's see. The Sundown Guy just texted in. Chad, I'm telling your listeners, as a fact, I live here. My family owns property 80 miles north of McAllen. My brother, deputy constable, there, and there's a high-speed chase every single day, running through our fences, tearing down our gates, breaking into our buildings. People can't understand the problem we've had down there. Can't even take my grandkids deer hunting on our property due to not knowing what kind of danger I'd be putting them in. And I mean, that's what that's what I hear. I hear that from people who I know down in South Texas, that this is happening all the time. It's very, very sad. Let's see, Robert in Oklahoma. Chad, did you hear the crazy woman saying that Walgreens was racist because they were closing stores in Boston? I did not see that story. Though everything is racist in America, so it doesn't surprise me if someone believes that. And by the way, that is something you will see more of as more of these stores begin to close in the urban areas around the United States, in downtown areas. You're going to start to see some of these corporations, some of these places that the left absolutely adores right now. They're going to call them racist. It's going to happen because you're going to have so many people that are going to be out of work. You've heard the term food deserts. Have you heard of that one, Nick? See, food deserts, what a food desert is, they say, is when you have an area of town or that is kind of a poorer area, and there's not a grocery store nearby. There's maybe fast food, but there's not a big grocery store or something like that. That's usually what a food desert is referred to in some of the more urban areas. And you're going to see some shopping deserts that are going to pop up because stores they're going to say, no, we're out of here. We're going to the suburban areas. We're going to the suburbs. We're pulling out of the downtown areas. We're pulling out of the more urban areas because they can't control the crime. And these places will be labeled as racist. And there's going to be pressure put on them to just deal with it and just deal with the loss that they're having when it comes to theft. I saw a story yesterday. Speaking of loss, I saw a story yesterday. I can't remember where it was out of. Maybe Oregon? No. By the way, Portland, Oregon, declaring a state of emergency just a few years after they legalized just about any drug to be used in Portland. Now they're saying there's a drug crisis and a fentanyl crisis in Portland, so they're doing great. But there's a coffee shop that's decided to go from paying their employees, I think it was $8 an hour, to $18 an hour. But they're not going to ask for tips anymore. They're going to tell customers you don't have to tip anymore. And the customers who were interviewed said, well, I'm fine paying like $1 more for coffee if it means I don't have to tip anymore. I'm fine with that. Wait until they increase that price of coffee about $3. It's not going to go up by just $1. Just wait. Just wait. I predict that coffee shop will be out of business within a year. Just a guess. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Follow me on social media at Chad AC Radio. Texter says, don't be scared to go deer hunting. Just take lots of ammunition. I think I'm more worried about the vehicle going through where they're deer hunting than anything. Download the podcast, the Current and Cast podcast, the Chad AC Show podcast. God bless you all. Stay healthy out there. We'll see you back here tomorrow for an Open Line Friday.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media.